I'm willing to bet money that everyone watching this video has heard of the rule of thirds, and there's a reason for this. This composition rule is time tested and we see it replicated in a lot of video, photography, and print design and other types of media. In this lesson, we're going to explore the rule of thirds first because it just makes sense to look at this time tested rule. For most with some knowledge of photography or design, the rule of thirds is the first composition or design rule that they learned about. And that is for a good reason. It's a solid rule that has been around for a long time. In this lesson, you'll explore the rule and how it relates to videography and how to break the rule. Here are our learning objectives for this learning module. You will review these at the end of the lesson. This is a great way to gauge your level of understanding for the material. At the end of the lecture, review these objectives and ask yourself if you understand everything. If not, reach out for help or revisit the content from the learning module. In order to understand where to place objects in the frame, you first have to understand how to visualize the frame. We use a very simple technique called the rule of thirds. The rule of thirds is a grid that divides the frame into 9 small boxes. Think of it like a tic-tac-toe board. From now on, every time you frame a shot, superimpose this image over your frame. This will tell you exactly where to place objects and people. The rule of thirds is actually very simple. Important elements belong in one of the 4 intersecting points. It doesn't have to be spot on, but it should be close. Objects will rarely be placed in the center of the frame, although there are exceptions which we'll present later on in this course. The reason is that the audience members like to examine a frame and gather information. When important objects are centered, you're basically force-feeding information to the audience rather than creating a subtle hint and allowing the audience members to search. One of the most basic applications of the rule of thirds is giving characters the correct amount of headroom. Headroom is the amount of room from the top of the head to the top of the frame. Although it may seem arbitrary, it is anything but. In fact, there is an exact science to figuring out how much headroom a subject should have. A surefire way to reveal yourself as a new filmmaker is to make amateur mistakes like incorrect headroom. Using the rule of thirds to determine headroom is as simple as intersecting the actor's eyes with the top horizontal line in the rules of third grid. Simply put, the eyes go to the top third. Here's 3 examples that detail proper and improper use of the rule of thirds to provide enough headroom. From the widest shot to the tightest shot, the rule of thirds and headroom will keep your actors framed correctly. One thing you will notice is that as you move from wider shots to tighter shots, the amount of headroom will decrease significantly. Eventually, you will even begin to cut off the top of the actor's head. Don't worry, that's normal. So normal, we even have a name for it. It's called giving the actor a haircut. Here's an example of giving an actor a haircut. It's a really tight shot, so tight that we've actually cut off the top portion of the actor's head, while still maintaining and prescribing to the rules of third composition. This very simple and basic rule is one that is always followed. Well, almost. Too much headroom makes a person look insignificant or weak. This can be used to your advantage. If your character is in a situation where they have lost power or are feeling insignificant, you can give them more headroom. Often, you will see subjects placed in the lower third of the frame to accomplish this effect. It can also be used to show the massive scale of a character's surroundings as though a location or situation is enveloping around them. However, you must use caution. Giving a character too much headroom accidentally can make the audience feel as though something is going to enter into the frame and occupy that space, which can be very distracting. When framing your shot, just remind yourself of the rule of thirds. After a while, it'll become second nature. Take some time and review the learning objectives for this learning module. Be sure to ask yourself if you understand everything. If not, reach out for help or revisit the content from this learning module. I hope that you've taken away from this lesson the importance of the rule of thirds. And remember, rules are made for breaking, but we have to have a strong understanding of this rule before we can break it with purpose. We'll see you in the next video.